every time that I went, I wasn't really getting any better. In fact, I was getting worse. I was getting all these weird other symptoms. I was losing my vision. Um, my balance was going, and all these crazy things were happening to me. I had to have numerous time off work. So that's what I was doing. So then my doctor rang me back, and he said to me, "Right, Greg, have you made your decision? What do you want to do?" I says, "I'm going to tell you, I don't want to take any drugs." And he was like, "What?"
Greg, how did you find Carnivore?
First off, Dave, thank you for having me on your channel, and it's nice to meet you. If it's okay, I'd like to start from sort of a bit of my history so you can get an understanding of how I got to where I am now. So when I was 15, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, um, and I was in lots of pain. I was going to the toilet 20 plus times a day easily, um, losing lots of blood without going into too much detail. But I used to have to carry a rucksack around with me constantly with spare clothes because most of the time I wouldn't make it in time, unfortunately. My friends would often say, "Oh, what you got in your bag, Greg?" And I'd be like, "Well, just food and snacks and things like that, because you don't want them to know, what's going on." Um, and that carried on for quite a while. I think the first thing that the doctors did was they put me on steroids, which I think is like the go-to for autoimmune conditions, I think. And it did help, but unfortunately, I got the associated side effects with that. So I got moon face, where your face sort of goes like a round shape. I got acne really badly and back knee really badly. Um, and I had terrible mood swings as well. I could just flip for no reason. It wasn't pleasant. Um, I then got put forward for a trial. So they was doing this trial, and they said that they'd identified a certain type of intestinal worm that they thought at the time could help with the treatment of Crohn's disease. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a go. So the idea was that you don't know whether you're getting a worm or whether you're getting a placebo. So you drink this liquid and then away you go. And then they monitor you over a series of weeks and months. I just got worse and worse. So I think I actually exited the trial early because I was just so ill. So that clearly didn't work at all. Um, at the time, I wouldn't say I was eating badly. So my mum made everything fresh. We didn't have any processed foods. Um, it was what we now know isn't healthy, but we didn't know any better at the time. So it was lots of fruits and vegetables, pastas, lean meats, the usual kind of stuff. Um, so anyway, I just carried on getting worse and worse. And then I got to my early 20s, and my doctor said to me, "Look, you've got two options. You can try this new drug that's not been tested on humans yet, only on mice, and it contains mouse DNA." So I was a bit like, do I really want mouse DNA in my body? I'm not sure about that. So I was like, well, what's option two? And he says to me, right, well, the option two is that we remove your entire large bowel and your rectum, and you'll have an ileostomy for the rest of your life. Well, it was strange because when he said that, I had like this moment of calm and peace over me, as if that was the right thing for me to do. So I went, I want that. So, looking back at it, it's a bit crazy to just say that straight away without going away and thinking about it. But I was that bad. I had to do something. So that's what I did. And so they did the operation. It went well. I remember when I came out of the operating theatre, the doctor came to me and he says, "You did the right thing, Greg." He said, "When we took your bowel out, it was just completely rotten. Like it was unsalvageable." So I definitely did the right thing. Um, and to start off with, it was quite difficult. Didn't bother me having a bag. That wasn't an issue, but I kept getting blockages. So they sent me away with like a diet sheet. Basically, you can eat this, you can't eat that. Stay away from fiber. Eat lean meats. You can have your fruit and your veg, but just chew thoroughly. Drink sports drinks to stay hydrated, which is a terrible idea, but that's what I did. And then basically that's how they left things. I had to go to hospital about 3 or 4 times after my operation because I kept getting blocked up, and they said it's probably just the scar tissue healing and all that kind of stuff. Well, eventually it did settle down and I was okay. At the time, I think I was about 8 stone. So in my early 20s, I was about 8 stone, and I could get my whole hand around the top of my arm at that point. Like literally, I had nothing on me at all. I was just skin and bones. I hated it, to be honest. But anyway, as I got better and I got used to my bag and what I could and couldn't eat, I decided I was going to start going to the gym. So I went all in. I'm an all-in kind of guy. So if I want to do something, I'm in. So I went to the gym 5 days a week, and I started eating a standard, we would call a bodybuilding diet, so high protein, high carbs. I did all right on that. My body seemed to respond quite well, and I've managed to get up to 13 stone. So I was pretty happy with that. The only thing was, though, I looked better on the outside. However, my inside was a bit of a ticking time bomb, to be honest. I was feeling good, but I was eating high carbs, low fat. And we all know that's not great. So 2017, I think it was, came around, and I started to take a turn for the worse. I started getting a lot of pain again. I didn't get any blockages, but I was getting a lot of pain. So it was like I was getting someone stabbing me in the side all the time with a knife. That's kind of graphic, I know, sorry, but that's what it felt like. And they said to me, right, well, you're going to have to go on this other drug. So they put me on this drug that I had to self-inject myself into my legs, into my stomach. I think it was like once every few weeks or so. That wasn't pleasant, especially if you hit a nerve in your leg. You know what I mean? Yeah, not great. But it seemed to work, and it worked for quite a while. And I felt good. I went back to the gym and did all that stuff. At this point, I don't know why, but it never occurred to me to look at what I'm eating. I never made that connection between food and my Crohn's, and I really don't know why. But anyway, got to I think it was 2018, and for some reason, I thought to myself, I'm going to start changing things a little bit in terms of getting a few more nutrients in me, because I felt like maybe I wasn't getting enough because I was a bit tired here and there. Because on Crohn's, you're always tired, so you just get used to that. But so I saw this thing, I think it was on like YouTube or something, that carrots are the way to go. So I was like, okay, well, I wouldn't normally eat carrots. I wasn't really a big veg fan, but I thought, why not? It seems to be working for some people. So I prepared some carrots, took them to work with me, had a couple of carrots in the morning. I got to the afternoon at work, and I realized that I hadn't had to empty my bag. Well, normally at this point, by the afternoon, I would have emptied it maybe 4 or 5 times, and nothing was happening. And I was thinking, oh no, I think I know what's coming here. So went home, and unfortunately, yes, I ended up in A&E, back in hospital with a blockage just because I ate carrots. I was very careful as well to make sure that I chewed them thoroughly, but it didn't matter. So I was only in for one night, luckily. They put me on some pain meds and some muscle relaxants, and it sorted itself out, so they let me go. And then I was fine. I just stopped eating carrots and I was fine. So, and then I think it was 2022, I got my worst blockage yet. So I don't know what it was that I ate. I've been eating everything that I would normally eat, so I didn't change anything. And this time, it was that bad that they thought that my bowel had ruptured, because it couldn't come out into my bag, it had to find a way to come out. So without being too graphic, it came out the entrance point of my body. Um, and I won't go into any more detail than that, but yeah, so they were quite worried that my bowel had ruptured and all these things were happening in me inside. Luckily, that wasn't the case. It was just my body just trying to get rid of it. So again, I was okay. I was sent home. They did some scans. They couldn't really find anything. They said my small bowel had narrowed slightly, but they couldn't see anything seriously wrong. So they just sent me on my way again. And then I just carried on doing what I was doing, just still eating the way I was, because no one told me to do anything any different, and it never occurred to me. That's a fault on my part, I know. But and then we got to 2023, early 23. My fiance announced that she was pregnant, so we were having our first son, which was absolutely incredible. Because I was always told that because of the myriad of drugs that I'd had in the past, the likelihood of me being a father was very slim. So to hear that news, that was brilliant. And I remember that she'd booked a holiday away with her mum and dad for a few nights to the seaside somewhere. I couldn't get the time off, so I stayed home. On the last night before she was due to come home, I thought to myself, I'm going to get pizza. So I thought, I'm going to get a nice meat feast pizza, just to treat myself. Historically, I'd eaten a pizza, no dramas. So I ate this pizza, everything was fine. The next day comes around, I went to the gym in the morning before work, went to work, and within 2-3 hours, I was on the floor at work in pain, and then I was shipped off to A&E again. And I was like, why is this happening? So I got to the hospital and they did various scans. It wasn't my normal hospital, it was the one near where I work. And they did all these scans and they said, we don't really know what we're looking at because we're not sort of Crohn specialists or anything like that. So they passed it over to my specialist, and he looked at it and he says, look, okay, we think your bowel is narrowing. We're not entirely sure. We think maybe the Crohn's is spreading. I was like, right, okay. He said, so you've only got one option really at this point, and that was to take the drug called infliximab. And that's the drug all those years ago with the mouse DNA that I did not want to take. So it'd come back full circle essentially. So I was like, well, I've got no choice. I've got to do it. So I did. And it basically involved me having to go to hospital. I'd sit in a semicircle with a bunch of people, hooked up to a machine, and they'd put this drip into me. And I'd sit there for about an hour and a half. It wasn't very nice. Everyone's looking really sad, you know what I mean? It's not great. And then they monitor you every 15 minutes. So they'll come around, check your blood pressure and all your temperature and all that stuff. And they come around with a cup of tea and biscuits to try and keep your spirits high and all the rest of it. So I did that quite a few times, but every time that I went, I wasn't really getting any better. In fact, I was getting worse. I was getting all these weird other symptoms. I was losing my vision. My balance was going, and all these crazy things were happening to me. I had to have numerous time off work. I think after my infusions, I was having an average of 4 days off work because I just couldn't function. So I thought, I can't carry on doing this. So I rang my specialist. I said, look, I can't keep doing this. I need to be fit and well and healthy. I'm expecting a child. I need to be well for them. I can't have my missus looking after me and a baby. I says, there's got to be another way. So he says, all right. He says, we'll stop your drug that you're on now, and I'll send you information for 3 other drugs that you can choose from. Great. And in the meantime, I'll put you in touch with a dietitian. I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. So I'll go with it. So the literature came through for the dietitian, and she sent me, it was low FODMAP, is it? The standard thing that they do. I was reading through it. It was so confusing. There was 3 separate books about what you can eat, what you can't eat, but in one book contradicted the other one, and so on and so forth. It made no sense, and it's really confusing. So I was like, it's got to be another way. I forgot also, yeah. So sorry, that was confusing. So I thought there's got to be a better way. So I jumped on YouTube like everyone does, and I just Googled sort of Crohn's diets or something. Loads of the usual stuff, stay away from fiber and all that jazz. And then I came across a short from Dr. Chafee, and he was talking about how they used carnivore to help treat Crohn's disease, and that sort of grabbed my interest straight away. I looked into more and more of his videos, and the more I watched, the more it made sense. I then looked into that, sort of led to Dr. Berry, and then Dr. Paul Mason, and then your channel. And I was looking at all these people that were curing all these different illnesses and diseases, and I thought it was incredible. I'd never really heard of anyone curing Crohn's though, so I was in my mind, I was thinking, well, if you can cure MS and arthritis and some forms of cancer, why can't I cure Crohn's disease? It's worth a shot. So June 23, I started to do carnivore, and at this point, I was still blending all my food. So I had steak, sausages, eggs. I didn't really go in with the bacon to start with. So I was cooking up a steak, cooking up sausages, taking the skin off, cooking some eggs, putting it in a blender, blending it all up. I mean, it looked horrendous, but it tasted absolutely incredible. It tasted amazing. My missus was like, "How can you eat that? It just looks horrible," but it was beautiful. So I did this for quite some time, a good number of weeks, just blending up my food. And what was really incredible is that within the first 4 or 5 days, I noticed that I wasn't in pain anymore. So that stabbing pain that I had on a daily basis had gone. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." 4 or 5 days in, that's pretty good. And then I noticed that I don't get bloated anymore. So on my previous diet, I'd eat, even when it was blended, I'd have to loosen a notch on my belt to, you know, sort that out. And I thought, oh, this is pretty crazy. So I carried on doing that, and then I kind of noticed that I was getting pain again. So pain started coming back in again. I was like, why am I getting pain? I'm doing what I should be doing, aren't I? So I did a bit more research. Turns out eggs and bacon. I wasn't really eating a lot of bacon, but I did have some, and sausages, because even though they were from the butchers, they could still have things in them that you're not too aware of. So I cut those out. So all I was left with essentially was steak. So I was always hungry, and I remember seeing Dr. Chief talk about eat till you're full. So, and I wasn't full. I wasn't doing it correctly because I wasn't eating enough. I was like, I can't afford to keep buying all these steaks. It's ridiculous. So, so what do I do? So I found this guy on YouTube. I think he was being interviewed by Coach Stephen, a carnivore influencer in the UK. I think it was him. And he had Crohn's, and he was some sort of fitness guy. And all he ate was mince and water and added salt, and that was it. I thought to myself, I wonder if I've got to do that. Maybe that's how my body is, and I need to do that. So that's what I did. I basically just went straight to mince. It was cheaper, definitely. But I started on 800 grams of mince, and I was just wolfing that down like nobody's business. But I was adding in beef dripping as well, so I was adding extra fat to that, and I could eat that in no time. And I was like, well, I've got to have more then. So I added more and more. So I'm now up to, I think it's quite a lot, but it's about 1,400 grams, 1.4 kilograms of mincemeat that I'm eating a day, and I can do it with no problem. And I'm I'm only at the moment my weight. So I was, remember back in the day, I was 13 stone. I'm now 10.5 stone. So I did drop quite a bit of weight when I started carnivore. But now I know that was visceral fat probably and a lot of water, because I still stayed quite lean. So that was pretty good. But at 10.5 stone, eating that much and not really gaining any weight, I'm quite surprised by that, to be honest. But I only eat when I'm hungry. So sometimes I will eat all that in one day, no problem. And other times I won't, and I'll spread it over 2 days. But mostly I'll have 3 meals a day, and I'll spread that out through there, and that's all I'm eating. So anyway, so that's what I was doing. So then my doctor rang me back, and he said to me, "Right, Greg, have you made your decision? What do you want to do?" I says, "I'm going to tell you, I don't want to take any drugs." And he was like, "What?" I says, "No, no drugs." He says, but you got to take something. I said, no, no, no. I says, I'm doing this thing called carnivore, and it's really helping me. I said, my pain's gone. I feel fantastic. Can I just see how I go on this? Well, he really wasn't very happy at all. I was quite surprised really by his reaction. I kind of thought he'd be happy that I was doing well, but he basically, in a roundabout way, said, if I don't take drugs, my risk of mortality is extremely high, on the grounds that I would probably have to have another operation to remove the part of my bowel that has or absorbs nutrients. He says, if that part is removed from your bowel, he says, your life expectancy is very low, and there's not much we can do about that. And he says, do you understand the ramifications of what you're saying and what you want to do? I says, I understand. As soon as I said I understand, and I realized that I'm doing this at my own risk, he kind of perked up as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulder, as if to say, all right, then you're on your own, mate. So yeah, it was quite scary, really. When someone you've worked with for so many years telling you that if you don't listen to what he's saying, I'm going to have an early death, and there's no other way of putting that, really. So yeah, so it's kind of scary, but I went with it. And he says, right, okay, what we'll do then, we'll give you an MRI scan in a few months' time. Well, that's due to be done at the end of this week. So that's really going to show me whether what I'm doing now is working or not. Also, between that time, I wanted to look into why eating this way works. How does the body utilize it? How does it work inside the body? And why does the body not need fiber? Why does it not need glucose? Why do we not need carbohydrates? So then I found Professor Bart K, and it just blew my mind, the amount of information and knowledge this guy has. And I just binge watched hours of his videos. And then I suddenly realized, well, this is why, that's why. So when people ask me what I'm doing and telling me that I'm crazy and all this other stuff, I can then give them some science, and I can say, this is why, so that's pretty cool. So I knew that I was expecting a call back from my dietitian at any point at this time. So in my mind, I was thinking, yes, I'm going to use all this information, and I'm going to have a great old conversation with her. So she rang me up, and she said, oh, hi, Greg, how are you getting on? I said, oh, yeah, I'm doing really well. I've lost loads of fat, maintained muscle, feeling great. She goes, oh, great. So you following the diet? I went, no. I says, I'm doing a thing called carnivore diet. And she was a little bit aware of it. She's always like the paleo diet. I says, well, kinda. I says, it's very similar. She says, well, what do you eat? I says, well, I just eat mince. And she was like, just mince. Yeah, yeah. What about you, vegetables and your fruit? No, I don't eat that. I says, I don't need it. She says, no, you do need it. I says, no, I don't. I says, I don't need carbohydrates, and I don't need exogenous glucose. She says, no, but your brain needs it, and your organs need it. I says, well, yeah, they do. I says, but you've got gluconeogenesis that provides you with everything that you need. with the glucose. And she says, "Oh no, that process is an emergency process. It's not for everyday use." I was like, "Really? Really? Okay, so is that what, like when we go into starvation mode or something, I guess?" Um, so that was quite interesting. And she says, "Look, you need to eat carbs." I says, "I'm not going to eat carbs, and I don't want to eat carbs." I says, "Because I'm feeling great, and so far everything's going really well." And she says, "No, but what's going to happen to you, Greg, is that your body's going to start craving carbs and sugars." I was like, "Right." She says, "When you're going to get cranky, irritable, you're going to lose sleep, and you're going to be, a really sort of aggravated individual." I was like, "And that's your body." She says, "That's your body telling you that you need these things." I was like, "Really? Okay." Um, so I says, "Look, I I don't intend to eat carbs. I don't intend to eat sugars or any fiber, etc." She says, "Look, I can't end this conversation, Greg, until you tell me that you are at least going to consider eating some carbohydrates." I went, "All right, well, I'll consider it." And she says, "That's all I wanted to hear." So, yeah, so I left it at that, really. And she says, "Well, do you think that you want to speak to me again?" I says, "Oh, no, I don't think I need to." I says, "But thank you for all your help." And then we sort of parted ways from there. But I thought that was quite an interesting conversation that we had, for sure. Um, so yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's been since June.
yes, June 23. Yeah.
Yeah. So, with your sorry, just I'll cut this bit out. I just want to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly. Do you just call it you call it a bag or what do you call it?
It's called an ileostomy, but I'll just call it a bag. Like I've
Bag.
got.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't want to say anything that sounds bad or anything, you know.
No, no, you call it what. Yeah, yeah.
So um so like has anything changed about the way the bag is, like how many times you have to empty the bag or anything like that since you started carnivore?
Yeah, so that's a big thing that I did notice. So previously on my old way of eating, I was emptying it up to 8, maybe 9 times a day, and it was very gassy as well. It would inflate like a balloon. Um, yeah, and that was quite interesting, especially you're wearing a t-shirt in the summertime, and then all of a sudden your bag just balloons up. Um, since carnivore, um, I empty it twice a day. That's only because I feel I have to, not because I actually need to. And there's no gas at all. So yeah, it's been a big change. So I'm assuming that's because my body is absorbing everything that I'm taking in, so there's very little waste. So yeah, it's pretty good.
And that's a good sign as well, right?
Mm,
That it is absorbing the nutrition, right?
yeah, yeah. It's great. I
Yeah.
mean, considering how
Wow.
much I'm eating, it's mad.
So, I mean, you would be eating much more now than you would have been if you were just eating a regular diet, right? And
Yeah,
there's less waste.
yeah, yeah. So if you work in calories, which I know we don't believe in calories if you watch Part K, but um, if we go on what I used to eat, I was consuming probably 2,500 calories, maybe a little bit more a day, something like that. I worked out roughly on eating the mince that I eat. It's about nearly 4,000 or more calories a day, which is crazy. So I'm eating that amount of mass of food, yet my weight isn't really going anywhere. It sort of seems to be happy at 10.5 at the moment, and my bag isn't really filling up at all. So it's mad. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
And how are you feeling within yourself? Like you feeling better, mood better, things like that?
Yeah, so I've noticed several different things happening to me. So I've also already mentioned the pain's gone, so no pain, no bloating. My Everyone says this, but it's true. My brain fog lifted. So I would really struggled to remember things from my childhood, and I never really knew why. So my mum and dad would be talking about all these stories about when me and my sisters were doing all these things, and I could never remember them. And then now I'm starting to remember them, and I'm going to them and I'm telling them stories because I'm starting to remember these things. At work, I've just become more focused. Um, I can problem solve, like, it's incredible. Before I would just kind of walk around in a fog, if you like, and that seems to have gone. Sometimes my mouth can't keep up with my brain, or the other way around, one of the two, because it's working in overtime all the time. So that's pretty cool. I feel good. I've had stable energy. So what I noticed is the first couple of weeks on Carnivore is I had so much energy. Um, we'd not long had the birth of our son, so we weren't getting a lot of sleep, but I still had loads of energy. So I was going to work and I was running around doing what I needed to do. The lads were like, "I'm sure you just had a baby, haven't you?" I was like, "Yeah." So how are you so full of energy? I was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it's what I'm eating, but I noticed that, and I could get up in the morning. I could just go, no drama. Um, Before, when I was on the previous diet and when I was at the gym 5 days a week, I heavily relied on pre-workout and carbohydrates. I would take pre-workout like nobody's business. Some of these pre-workouts have got as much as 4 shots of espresso in them in one go, and that's what I would take to get me through the gym and then through the day. The only downside to that is when you get to about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you have a big old crash and you just feel terrible. At the moment, I'm able to go to the gym in the morning, get up at 4 a.m., go to the gym. I don't eat before I go. I don't consume any caffeine. None of that. I'll just go and I'll train. I have the energy. I'll go to work. I'll eat my meat, and I'm good to go. It's mad, when I know that I heavily relied on that caffeine to get me through, my workouts and through my day at work. So it's pretty cool. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Um, I mean, having I have kids as well, and the fact that you've got so much energy, when your son's like less than a year old, right?
yeah.
It's That's amazing.
Yeah. It's good. Obviously, there's the odd day where you are a little bit lethargic and tired, but we're only human, aren't we? At the end of the day, the carnivore diet isn't doesn't make you a superhuman, although sometimes you feel like that. But mostly, we are still human, so we still get tired. Of course, we do. And all the rest of it. But for the most part, it's a heck of a lot better than the alternative. So,
And so, what does your wife think about all this?
uh, well, when I first told her that I wanted to do it, she wasn't really sure. Um, and I don't blame her because it sounds a bit mad, doesn't it? But she knew that my intentions were good because I was doing it for her and for our son, and for myself, obviously, so that I could be the best person that I can be for them. And so she was behind me, or she is behind me. Um, so yeah, good. And then I kind of like went in a bit over the top with it, really, in terms of I was finding all this information out about bark hay and all these sorts of things about why we shouldn't eat all these things. Obviously, my partner was still eating all these things. I kind of like tried to get her in on it, but she hasn't found her why yet. So I need to just sort of step away from that and just let her discover that naturally. But yeah, she's been really supportive.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And so just to go back, I think you said before you're reading 3 times a day.
Yeah, it all depends on how I'm feeling on any particular day. Sometimes I'll not have anything in for breakfast, and I'll probably eat midday. I've noticed if I have breakfast and then lunch, I won't need to eat again, and sometimes still the next day. Um, or if I've or if I do get hungry, then I'll eat sort of about 7 o'clock at night or something like that, and I'll just have the rest of my mince that's left over. But generally, it's spread over 3 meals, because obviously 1,400 grams is a lot to eat in a single sitting. So
That's really good. So, just kind of maybe a little bit off the wall question. Um, how was your oral health before versus how is it now? Have you noticed any changes?
it's actually interesting you should mention that. So I've always had quite bad receding gums. I've never had gum disease or anything like that, but when I was a child, I always remember my dentist telling me that I need to look after my gums. Well, my interpretation of that was to brush them. So I used to brush my gums, and as a result, it wore them away. And whenever I go to the dentist, they'd say, "Oh, yeah, you know, your gums are receding. They could get worse. We can fill them in for you, and all this kind of stuff." But I've noticed since being on Carnivore, they're starting to fill back in themselves, which is pretty cool. Um, yeah, so that's cool. I've noticed as well on my previous diet. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you got horrible breath, haven't you? You know, and you've got like a furry tongue and all this kind of stuff, and your teeth feel a bit gross. Don't get that now. So obviously, I still brush my teeth, but I don't feel like I need to. I do it out of habit more than anything. And so far, no one's told me I've got bad breath. So you know, it's crazy that you don't have that feeling in your mouth. You know, and sometimes your tongue feels a bit fuzzy as well. That's gone.
Yeah. To be honest, this is really weird to say this, but I love talking to people about this because it makes me feel happy that it wasn't just me.
Yeah,
Yeah. So with the gums getting better, does that mean they're less sensitive now?
yeah. So I've definitely noticed that. Yeah, but I'm not eating things that I would normally react to, gum wise or teeth wise. You know, like things like ice cream and things like that, where it'd be cold in your teeth and you'd immediately feel it. But um, yeah, sometimes when I used to brush my teeth, I would get a bit of pain and that sort of thing. But I don't get that now, so I would say that's been improving.
You've got this MRI next week
Yeah,
or at the end of the week.
yeah. On
Yeah,
Sunday, this coming
Sunday.
Sunday. Yeah,
Um, and I mean, at this stage, w- within yourself, you feel like this is the way, this is working, this is all good, right? I
yeah,
mean, it feels to me like the MRI is more going to be like a technicality than anything else, because
yeah,
you kind of know how you feel.
yeah. That's true. So yes, I do feel a heck of a lot better. I mean, there's no doubt. I do sometimes get a twinge because I know that it's not all about your diet. There are other factors that can cause inflammation, um, you know, stress and all that kind of stuff. Um, but on a carnivore diet, you definitely deal with stress a lot better, for sure. Um, but I have still every so often I'll get a little niggle, and because of me, what happens to me historically, I kind of immediately go to the oh, it's my Crohn's playing up, but it could just be something else. Um, but the MRI scan really is more for my doctor and for me really to see what I'm doing is working or not, and to see whether it's spreading, which I hope it's not. So if it hasn't spread, that's a win for me, absolute win. I know that a 1 year on coming up to 1 year on carnivore isn't necessarily going to heal me because I've had 20 plus years of abuse on my body. So I know it's going to be a long road, but as long as I can see that I'm going in the right direction, I will carry on. You know, I have no intention of changing that. Um, yeah.
Um, one thing I'd like to ask is that it'd be great if you could come back on after you do find out the results and just let us know how that's going, because it would be really, really good to hear what's happened.
Yeah.
Mm,
I'm really hoping it's going to be positive news. I really am. I think
mm,
everyone is that knows me. Um,
mm.
but even if it's not, I'm not gonna feel down about it because I know that what I'm doing is the right thing. Um, and then I'll just have to discuss it with my doctor at that time, depending on what he thinks. But I've always been the kind of guy that's in the mindset of there's always somebody worse off. So no matter how bad things are in life, there's always somebody else that's worse off. So, you know, pick yourself up and crack on, basically. So I will, um, I won't see it as a loss if it is, not getting any better. I'll just see it as a temporary glitch, and carry on and carry on doing what I'm doing.
Mm. So, um, if you were giving someone advice about getting started with carnivore that's perhaps in the same kind of situation as yourself, how would you recommend they get started and stick with it?
So I would say, as many people do, start slowly. Um, if you jump in straight away from a standard diet, it can cause some issues. So I would say wean yourself in gently, cut something out once a week or so, um, and then replace that with some kind of meat or eggs or something, and then just transition slowly, um, until you find out what works for you. Everyone's different, although we are technically the same. Every person is unique. Um, some people will be able to do it quite quickly and easily. Others won't. Some people will find they get results quickly, and others won't. Don't be disheartened. Carry on. Um, if you can drink coffee, drink coffee. If you can't, don't. There's no. I don't think there's not a right or a wrong way. I think as long as you're eating, you know, mainly meat-based products and high fat, you're onto a winner really. And then if you want to add veg and fruit, that's entirely up to you. Um, but but yeah, I mean, a good example of this is my mum. So my mum was really against me doing this because she saw the weight loss and she was very worried about my health. Until I started to show, show her the benefits of it, and I was sending her videos and things like that. So she was really, really reluctant, and she was a big veggie fan, fruit and veg. My dad grows his own fruit and veg, and my mum eats it. Um, she just couldn't see how you can survive without that stuff. So I basically just sent her this information, and she decided to give it a go. And she did it slowly. So she integrated it slowly, which, like I say, is the best way to do it. She cut out a few little things here and there and added in more meat and fish and eggs. And she had some issues to start with. So in the first, I think, 2, 3 weeks, she was ready to quit. She really wanted to give up, because it was quite difficult for her. But I kept pushing her to say, look, carry on. You won't regret this. Stay with it, and you'll feel amazing. So she decided to carry on, and we're now 6 months later, and she's doing incredible. So my she's in her 60s, and she looks like she's reverse aging. To be quite honest, it's incredible. She's lost, I think she said, 23 pounds. She's only petite as well. She's only very small. 23 pounds. She's got more energy than a lot of kids that we know. She had loads of aches and pains. They've all gone. At one point we were quite worried because she had a mini stroke a few years back, and she wasn't doing so well. And now you would see her, and you would think, you wouldn't think there's anything wrong at all. It's incredible. She's doing well. So yeah, all I'd say is stick with it. It's hard to start with. It really is, but stick with it because what you get from it is just incredible.
Wow, that's awesome about your mum. And so has anyone else in the family expressed any interest or after seeing the results your mum's had too?
Um, Concern was expressed mostly because of her weight loss. They were worried about her as well because she was losing so much weight so quickly. I really would like my sister to go on carnivore. She's in her late 30s, and she's got rheumatoid arthritis in a really bad way. She's had various joints replaced. She's got these massive lumps on her wrist. and they don't know what to do with her. She's had an operation on her shoulder. Her arms are sort of coming out. All these things are happening to her. But again, she's under the care of obviously professionals, and none of them have ever mentioned anything to her about diet. It's always been drugs, 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 or operations. I said to her a lot, you really need to try and give this a go. Just to, people have been reversing or treating rheumatoid arthritis with this diet. And I'm hoping she's going to give it a go. I think she did try, but I think the biggest problem for my sister is that she loves sweet things. She really does, like sweets, crisps, chocolate, Coca-Cola, all the things you should not be eating if you have an autoimmune disease. But you know, you can't make somebody do something they don't want to do. You can only advise them, and then it's their decision then, isn't it,
Yeah.
Um,
And it takes time always because it's just such a huge change, you know?
yeah, yeah, it is. And she's got two young kids as well, so, it's hard for her, to be dealing with that and then having to think about changing her diet in such a radical way. Um, yeah, hopefully one day she'll get there. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope she finds a way through it. Um, so Greg, if people want to reach out to you, do you have a website or a YouTube or any social media where we can get in contact?
I'm not on any social media actually.
Oh,
So I've got an email address and that's about it. I don't really have a lot of time to go on, Facebook and things like that, so I don't bother with it. Um, but yeah, I've got an email and that's about it.
so I'll share that below if that's
Yeah, sure.
okay.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I'm really happy to hear how well you're doing, and yeah, I hope you'll come back on.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great to talk to you.